You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. At 38 years old, Girmay Zahilay is King County's youngest ever executive. He's coming in after a long tenure of his predecessor, Dow Constantine, who ran the county for nearly 16 years. Zahilay was sworn in early to replace the temporary acting executive who's been in charge since Constantine stepped down in March. And he says he's ready to completely change the office. That was at the swearing-in ceremony. King County Executive oversees all kinds of important services like the Sheriff's Department, public health, transportation, public housing, and jails. So what does change look like? What could that mean for King County? Here to discuss is our new King County Executive, Girmay Zahilay. Mr. Executive, thank you very much for being here.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much, Libby.
So I just want to get to sort of your overall vision for the office in a minute here, but we've got a couple big headlines in King County right now that I'll take your temperature on. One is that we are experiencing the rain, the atmospheric river. You have issued an emergency proclamation to prepare for flooding throughout King County. What are you watching right now? How are things looking? What kind of preparedness is the county exploring here?
Yeah, I declared an emergency in my first week on the job, and that just tells you what kind of job that this is. We got to roll with the punches, and there's a lot of rain out there, and many of our communities, especially in the southeast corner of King County, are experiencing really record floods right now. Rivers are overflowing, and that's impacting a lot of neighborhoods. And so that declaration of emergency allows us to deploy a lot of resources to help people. And so what I would tell people is stay away from flooded roads. There will be people from the Department of Local Services shutting roads down and putting up signage. Please stay away from those. Check the status of rivers and roads using King County Flood Warning app, or they can visit kcemergency.com to just find out what's going on around them with the various rivers that flow through King County. They can sign up for alerts from King County to receive emergency notifications directly right there on this website. And so I just say, stay vigilant. We're out there trying to keep roads safe and keep our communities safe as well.
One more story in the headlines right now. This happened just over 24 hours ago. Yesterday morning around 6:30 a.m., an unmarked King County Sheriff's Office vehicle struck and killed a 26-year-old woman in Monroe. Monroe police say that this was in the westbound lanes of Highway 2. The driver is cooperating with Monroe Police's investigation. We don't know whether this was a Sheriff's Department officer or a civilian employee involved. Again, we have limited information from Monroe Police Department. Again, it's your first, 10 days or so on the job. Can you tell us anything more? What are you watching for? How will you approach oversight on something like this?
Yeah, I don't have too much more information right now, Libby. The sheriff's office is working with and deferring to the Monroe Police Department at this time, and there are investigations happening, so I can't speak too much about this. But on a human level, of course, this is a tragedy and something that I'm keeping the impacted people in my mind and in my thoughts, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that things like this don't happen. But I'll be able to share more very soon.
Big picture stuff now. You are taking over the office from Executive Constantine, who was there for 16 years. You've said you're looking at a lot of change. There has been already shakeups in the office. Your team, the first week you were sworn in, let people in the executive's office know that only about half of the county's 147 staffers were keeping their jobs. About 70 are going to be reapplying for new positions. Why pursue this level of change? I mean, we've talked about the fact it's been a long time. What are your goals for this change?
Yeah, Libby, one thing that I will just clarify for your listeners, I know you know this, but people listening might not. 147 is not the county's total staffing. The county has 18,000 employees.
Yeah, certainly not the whole picture. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really what we're talking about is probably around 70 positions out of 18,000. So it is a fraction of a fraction that's going to be impacted. And those are the people who are in the executive's office. These are the executive's closest workers who advance the executive's priorities. And my priorities and my positions and my approach are not exactly the same as prior executives, right? I was not elected to just continue the status quo. I was elected to advance the things that I talked about on the campaign trail. That is my 4 Bs for a better future. I might be a broken record at this point, but just in case people haven't heard, my top priorities are: number one, breaking that cycle of homelessness and addiction and crime and incarceration that's harming too many of our communities. The second B is building for affordability. We have a growing population and we need to build the infrastructure that's needed to keep up with that growth. And I do believe the increasing supply of housing and childcare and transit and economic opportunities will lead more to more affordability. So building for affordability is the second B. Number three is boots on the ground. I want King County to be more present in communities, solving problems externally in a very high impact, tangible way. Number four is better government, continuing to improve our services, be more accountable, be more efficient, be more transparent. And my executive office, which are the, a few dozen to 100 people who work around me, are going to be set up and restructured to advance those priorities, because that's not how the structure works at this time. And so it's very normal. It's very healthy when a new administration comes in to have an administration change. The difference here is that King County hasn't seen an elected administration change in 16 years, whereas if you go to the city of Seattle or other offices, you might see that administration change way more regularly, so people are more accustomed to it. But this is all with an eye toward delivering our services more effectively, more efficiently, and advancing the priorities that I talked about on the campaign trail.
Let's talk a little bit more about the county's relationship with the federal government. There's a lot that's up in the air. We talked just yesterday with KCRHA's president or CEO about the turmoil that we just saw with the continuum of care funding that looked like it was going to be significantly reduced for permanent supportive housing. It would have been tens of millions of dollars for permanent supportive housing taken away here in the county, or potentially having to shift, mostly over to short-term shelter, which would have been significantly disruptive. Now that's been put on hold in the face of these lawsuits. How are you approaching the federal government and all this uncertainty around not just homelessness funding, but the rest of it?
For sure. Everyone knows that one of the biggest issues that we face in King County is the homelessness crisis. Something like 16,000 people are sleeping outside every night, chronically unhoused, often with overlapping issues like mental health and addiction disorders. And we need the resources to build out the suite of responses that people need to be moved into housing and to make recovery from whatever they're experiencing. The federal government is not making that easy right now. They are cutting off millions of dollars of resources from local governments like ours and at the state level as well. They're putting in all kinds of onerous and what we believe unconstitutional criteria in the resources they do try to give us. And so I am continuing the tradition of my predecessors like Executive Braddock in suing the federal government, forming coalitions with counties and cities around the country to push back and say, this is unacceptable and it's going to make our homelessness crisis worse and more people are going to suffer. So in my first week on the job, I was able to join a coalition of counties and cities around the country in suing because the federal government is trying to cut tens of millions of dollars from our resources right here in King County for things like permanent supportive housing. And we know that permanent supportive housing is one of the most critical strategies. It's not the only strategy, as some might characterize it. We need permanent supportive housing. We need emergency housing. We need low barrier shelter. We need recovery housing. We need everything under the sun. And cutting us off like this is definitely not a good strategy in terms of advancing our goal of keeping people housed. And so what we just heard in terms of an update recently is that the federal government is hopefully backtracking on these new criteria that would have impacted our permanent supportive housing resources. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to land for now. So I'm hopeful that we're going to land in a relatively good place, but more news to come.
I just want to note for listeners, there's a little bit of banging in the background. That is a 1-year-old. Is that?
Yeah, that's my baby girl, Jazzy. She's 1.5.
She's just off camera.
I tried to distract her with some Miss Rachel. If anybody doesn't know, Miss Rachel is a really popular YouTube content creator for babies. It's not working at the moment. She's grabbing a lot of my stuff and banging, making noises.
She's doing a little one baby band, and it's great.
There you go.
On the issue of federal funding, we're watching this rainfall and the flooding that could potentially have really tough impacts in many parts of King County. It is bringing to mind that it was just last November when Seattle was hit by the bomb cyclone, the wind event that knocked out power, did tons of damage to, people's homes and all kinds of things across the county. The county requested a national emergency declaration and assistance from FEMA. That was denied by the federal government without explanation. Obviously, we don't know what kind of damage we might see from flooding right now, but it does raise the question of, do you have concerns about not just ongoing funding like the permanent supportive housing, but also what happens if there are disasters?
I am. I'm very concerned across the board. This administration is not just impacting our homelessness services or our reproductive health care services, the things that get lots of media attention. It's also stuff like what you're talking about. Our emergency preparedness and response is impacted. Our economy is impacted. And so every day we will continue to use every legal tool that we have in our toolkit to push back. But this is definitely a concern.
What can people expect from your first year? Like at the end of, if we're talking at this time next year, what kind of a highlights do you expect to be able to talk about the changes you've made at the county that residents will be able to see and feel?
For sure. First and foremost is hiring the best team possible. I need a strong senior leadership team, and I need a strong executive office, and I need a really strong cabinet. The cabinet are the department directors for all of the 11 or 12 departments across King County that actually deliver all of our services. I'll be making some announcements on each of those in the coming weeks, but hiring up that really, really solid team is number one. So I want you all to be able to see and say, this is a team that is reflective of our region and is highly competent at delivering the services that our communities require. Number two is restructuring the office and making tangible wins on my 4 top priorities, which as I mentioned before, are breaking the cycle, building for affordability, putting more boots on the ground, and better government. And so what I want you to be able to say is, wow, boots on the ground, Girmay has really restructured the government to put as many people outside in high impact positions as possible. I want you to see us. I want you to feel us. I want you to see us stocking up food banks and doing outreach to our unhoused neighbors, knocking on doors in low income communities and connecting people to services, activating dark and desolate neighborhoods and alleyways through arts and culture. That's what I want you to see us doing. I also want you to see us making a lot of progress on standing up emergency housing, things like tiny house villages, so we can put more roofs over people's heads. I want you to see us restructuring our offices so that we have more accountability through more internal audit functions, more transparency through quarterly reports around the progress that we've made. I want you to see us doing more civic education so that more people are able to participate in our politics. These are all things that are centered around the 4 Bs, and I want you to see each of those. Also, before I end this question, because I know I've been answering it for a long time, we do have a transition committee report coming out. As you might recall, I set up a 100-person transition team at the beginning of my term, and they're working hard to deliver short-term and long-term priorities. And so I also want you to see us advancing those, especially those short-term first-year priorities in the first year that were composed by this 100-person committee that is reflective of our whole region.
Really quick before we go, the King County Council now has an opening. You have proposed 3 folks who could temporarily fill your seat, but there are a number of people who are signaling interest in running. That includes current State Senator Rebecca Saldana, Seattle Port Commissioner Toshiko Grace Hasegawa. Will you be endorsing for your seat?
Right now, my plan is to have a competitive process for that seat. We're super early in the process. I believe only one person so far has officially announced, and another has said that they are strongly interested. These are really good, strong candidates, and I'm excited to see what District 2 has in store. This is a really, really diverse and special district. It's the place that I grew up in, so I care a lot about it, and I am invested in the success of District 2. So I'll be making sure that whoever is elected into that position is delivering on behalf of this very important district.
King County Executive Girmay Zahilay, thank you so much for being here, and thanks to your daughter, too, for her patience.
Jazzy, can you say bye-bye? Did
bye
you hear
bye.
it?
I did.
All right. Love it. All right. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org or on your favorite podcast app.